Welcome to the House of Representatives. Your safety is our top priority. Please take a moment to familiarize yourself with our emergency exit plan. First, remember that illuminated exit signs will always show you the way. Please remain calm and follow these signs in an orderly manner. Now, for your specific location. If you are on the plenary floor, exits are at both ends, leading to the north and south wing lobbies. You may also use the main entrance glass doors, which open toward the flagpole area. If you are in the middle gallery, your primary exit is through the main entrance glass doors, located near the flagpole area. If you are in the second or third floor galleries, in addition to the main door on your level, emergency exits are located at the ends of the seat rows on both the east and west sides. All these exits will lead you to the main hallway stairways, going down to the main entrance and out to the flagpole area. A quick guide. If you are on the south side of the gallery, turn right as you go through the emergency exit. If you are on the north side, turn left. Both will lead you towards the main hallway stairways. If you are seated at the rostrum, your nearest exits are on the north and south sides, leading directly to the rear entrance lobby and out to the helipad area. Finally, if you are unable to leave the plenary hall, do not panic. Essential safety items, a hard hat, whistle, bottled water, and flashlight are readily available under your table for your immediate use. Thank you for your attention. Your safety is our shared responsibility.
Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to take up additional reference of business and request that the Secretary General be directed to read the titles of bills and resolutions on first reading, as well as communications and committee reports.
There is a motion. Is there any objection? The Secretary General is directed to read the titles of the House bills, resolutions, and committee reports.
Additional reference of business. Bills on first reading. House Bill number 9108, an act revising the Animal Welfare Act, strengthening animal welfare standards by establishing an Animal Welfare Bureau under the Department of Agriculture and for other purposes. By Representative Aquino Magsaysay.
To the Committee on Agriculture and Food.
House Bill number 9109, segregating parcels of land located in Pidawan, Ongasan, Barangay Luwakan Proper, Baguio City for military reservation of Proclamation 2405 and converting them into alienable and disposable public land and declaring the same open for the disposition of bona fide qualified occupants and/or applicants under RA 730 or RA 10023. By Representative Dumogan.
To the Committee on Natural Resources.
House Bill number 9110, an act creating the National Creative Industries Investment Program and for other purposes by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Special Committee on Creative Industry.
House Bill number 9111, an act providing benefits and incentives to overseas Filipino workers investing in business in the Philippines by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs.
House Bill number 9112, an act institutionalizing the PhilHealth outpatient coverage on dialysis and renal replacement therapy and for other purposes by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 9113, an act creating the Department of Technical Education and Skills Development, defining its powers and functions, repealing for the purpose RA 7796, otherwise known as the TESDA Act of 1994, and appropriating funds therefore. By Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education and the Committee on Government Reorganization.
House Bill number 9114, an act institutionalizing the creation of Economic and Investment Promotion Officer in LGUs, amending for the purpose RA 7160, otherwise known as the Local Government Code of 1991, by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill number 9115, an act mandating the insurance of all government properties and interest with the GSIS and for other purposes by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization.
House Bill number 9116, an act granting hazard pay to workers in critical industries during a state of calamity or emergency or public health emergency by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Bill number 9117, an act increasing the allowances of barangay officials, granting honoraria and other benefits to the barangay workers who have served for at least 1 year, and providing funds therefore, amending for the purpose the Local Government Code of 1991, by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill number 9118, an act integrating all provincial and sub-provincial jails with the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, amending for the purpose RA 6975, otherwise known as the DILG Act of 1990 as amended, by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Justice.
House Bill number 9119, mandating the deployment of licensed allied health professionals to geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas and underserved regions, and providing incentives therefore, by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 9120, an act declaring the Philippine Maharlika Highway as the National Food Highway, providing an integrated system for the processing, storage, transport, distribution, and monitoring of food products and appropriating funds therefore, by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Agriculture and Food.
House Bill number 9121, an act mandating the establishment of Persons with Disability Affairs offices in all LGUs further amending for the purpose Section 40 of RA 7277 as amended by RA 10070, otherwise known as an act establishing institutional mechanism to ensure the implementation of programs and services for persons with disabilities in every province. By Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Aldo Julian, and Isidre.
To the Special Committee on Persons with Disabilities.
House Bill number 9122, an act institutionalizing the participation of civil society organizations in the preparation and authorization process of the annual national budget, providing effectively mechanisms therefore and for other purposes. By Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Isidre.
To the Committee on People's Participation.
House Bill number 9123, an act providing for the legal framework and mechanisms for the creation, operation, administration, and coordination of special agricultural growth zones in the Philippines, creating for this purpose the Philippine Agricultural Growth Zone Authority and for other purposes. By Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Isidre.
To the Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization and the Committee on Agriculture and Food.
House Bill number 9124, an act creating in the DepEd the plantilla positions of guidance counselors in every elementary school and additional plantilla positions of guidance counselors for high school, increasing the salaries of guidance counselors and guidance-related positions and appropriating funds therefore. By Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Isidre.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
House Bill number 9125, an act upgrading all provincial and district hospitals by providing modern medical equipment, ambulance services, and establishing specialty units, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. By Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Isidre.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 9126, an act strengthening the animal welfare protection by increasing the penalties prescribed therein, and by banning those convicted of animal cruelty from owning any kind of animals, amending for the purposes specific sections of Republic Act number 8485, amended by RA 10631, otherwise known as the Animal Welfare Act of 1998, by Representative Almario Chino Miguel.
To the Committee on Agriculture and Food.
House Bill number 9127, an act creating a new municipal trial court for the municipality of Jimenez, situated in the province of Misamis Occidental, in the 10th Judicial Region, amending for the purpose Batas Pambansang Bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. By Representatives Waminal Henry Almonte and Waminal Sancho Fernando.
To the Committee on Justice.
House Bill number 9128, an act amending RA 7305, otherwise known as the Magna Carta of Public Health Workers, and for other purposes, by Representatives Tino, Elago, and Co.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 9129, an act providing for the Magna Carta of Private Health Workers, by Representatives Tino, Elago, and Co.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 9130, an act establishing the National Financial Inclusion and MSME Credit Access Program and for other purposes, by Representative Ang.
To the Committee on Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Development.
House Bill number 9131, an act establishing a national framework for the rights, care, and integration of persons with autism, creating the Interagency Council on Autism, instituting a national autism care plan, and providing funds therefore, by Representative Daza.
To the Committee on Health and the Special Committee on Persons with Disabilities.
House Bill number 9132, an act creating the National Coordinating Council for Education, defining its mandate, powers, and functions, and appropriating funds therefore, by Representative Recto.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture and the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill number 9133, an act establishing the Bureau of Halal Industry, mandating the inclusivity of halal certifications in food, consumer products, healthcare, and services, and appropriating funds therefore, by Representatives Duterte Omar Vincent and Duterte Paulo.
To the Committee on Trade and Industry.
House Bill number 9134, an act excluding system losses from VAT in the sale of electricity to residential household consumers, by Representatives Sendanya, Docno, Ismula, and Bagao.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
House Bill number 9135, an act strengthening and expanding the Philippine Sports Hall of Fame, amending for the purpose RA 8757, entitled an act establishing the Philippine Sports Hall of Fame and appropriating funds therefore, by Representative D. Faustino Michael Carlos.
To the Committee on Youth and Sports Development.
House Bill number 9136, an act exempting drugs and medicines prescribed for mental health condition from VAT, by Representative Ako.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
House Bill number 9137, an act promoting mental health and well-being in the workplace and instituting measures to prevent burnout and for other purposes, by Representative Ako.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Bill number 9138, an act establishing the National Youth Mental Health and Digital Wellbeing Program, providing mental health professionals in schools, regulating harmful digital practices, and strengthening early intervention for Filipino students, by Representative Ako.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture and the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill number 9139, an act institutionalizing political party development and governance, ensuring internal democracy and accountability, prohibiting political turncoatism and for other purposes, by Representatives Asidre, Teves, Mendoza, Abalos, Aquino Magsaysay, Arbison, Munir Jr., Bernos Ching, Briones, Espares, Legazpi, Poe, Lopez, Ordanes, Tan Aman, Soriano, Yatco, Waminal Henry, Makasait, and Educado.
To the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms.
House Bill number 9140, an act institutionalizing budget reform that will ensure the equitable distribution of funds for all municipal and barangay LGUs for the purpose of implementation of Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, appropriating funds therefore, by Representative Teves.
To the Committee on Ecology.
House Bill number 9141, an act creating a system for timely and scientific-based cancellation of classes in public and private schools, by Representative Teves.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill number 9142, an act requiring all candidates for elective public office to execute a sworn undertaking of non-engagement in government contracts within 5 years prior to the filing of certificate of candidacy, amending for the purpose relevant provisions of Batas Pambansa Bilang 881 or the Omnibus Election Code, and supplementing RA 9184, Government Procurement Reform Act, and RA 3019, Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, and for other purposes, by Representative Teves.
To the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms.
House Bill number 9143, an act establishing in the municipality of Cataran, province of Cagayan, a basic comprehensive multi-specialty center under the Cagayan Valley Medical Center to be known as the Dr. Tomas Nolasco Sr. Multi-Specialty Center, and appropriating funds therefore, by Representative Nolasco.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill number 9144, an act reducing the VAT from 12% to 10%, amending for the purpose the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, by Representative Montes.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
House Bill number 9145, an act mandating the alignment of the National Youth Development Plan with the Sustainable Development Goals, requiring the NYC to publish youth development indicators and institutionalizing SDGs localization for youth and appropriating funds therefore, by Representative Montes.
To the Committee on Youth and Sports Development.
House Bill 9146, an act mandating the NYC to formulate, implement, and monitor a national youth mental health strategy and appropriating funds therefore, by Representative Montes.
To the Committee on Youth and Sports Development.
House Bill 9147, declaring November 4 of every year a special non-working holiday in the province of Quezon in commemoration of the death anniversary of revolutionary hero Apolinario de la Cruz, popularly known as Hermano Puli, by Representatives Montes and Verga, Tan, Keith, Maica, and Arrogancia.
To the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill 9148, an act establishing the Kalinga program to shield Filipino households, workers, farmers, fisherfolk, transport operators, and MSMEs from fuel-driven inflation, energy supply disruptions, and essential goods price shocks, and for other purposes, by Representative Escudero.
To the Ad Hoc Committee on Legislative Energy Action and Development.
House Bill 9149, an act establishing the Philippine Open Finance Framework, ensuring consumer financial data portability, enhancing competition and innovation in the financial sector, strengthening data privacy and security, and for other purposes, by Representatives Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Yeda Marie, Romualdez Andrew Julian, and Asidre.
To the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
House Bill 9156, an act reducing the VAT from 12% to 10%, amending for the purpose sections 106A, 107A, and 108A of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, by Representatives Diokno, Sendanya, Ismula, and Bagao.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
House Bill 9158, an act mandating a 14th month pay for employees in the private sector, by Representative San Fernando.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
House Bill 9159, an act providing exceptions to the confidentiality of bank deposits for public officials, amending for the purpose RA 1405, otherwise known as the Secrecy of Bank Deposits Law, requiring the disclosure and verification of certain bank deposits and investments of such officials, and prescribing penalties for violations thereof, by Representative San Fernando.
To the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
House Bill 9160, an act establishing a national groundwater preservation and management program, providing for the sustainable use, protection, and restoration of groundwater resources and for other purposes, by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Public Works and Highways.
House Bill 9161, an act establishing the National Center for Cooperative Development in the PUP and appropriating funds therefore, by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill 9162, an act institutionalizing affordable funeral services for indigent families and appropriating funds therefore, by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Social Services.
House Bill 9163, an act mandating the establishment of the Philippine Online Library and the digitization of all prescribed references for public education, providing funds therefore and for other purposes, by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9164, an act providing for natural flood management and erosion control mechanisms, strengthening ecosystem-based approaches to disaster reduction and for other purposes, by Representative Olivares.
To the Committee on Disaster Resilience.
House Bill 9165, an act exempting the system loss charge component in the sale of electricity by distribution companies and electric cooperatives from the coverage of the VAT, amending for the purpose Section 109 of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended, by Representatives Tino Elago and Co.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
Resolutions. House Resolution 990, a resolution commending Dr. Erwin Ken Angcual Parchaso for ranking first in the March 2026 Physicians Licensure Examination and for bringing honor to the Lyceum Northwestern University, Dagupan City, and the province of Pangasinan, by Representative De Venecia.
To the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
House Resolution 991, a resolution commending the Philippine Maritime Industry Authority and Philippine Maritime Attaché Attorney Sharon De Chavez Aledo for the country's election as chair of the Subcommittee on Human Element, Training, and Watchkeeping of the International Maritime Organization and recognizing the Philippines' leadership in global maritime governance, by Representative Oducado.
To the Committee on Transportation.
House Resolution 992, resolution strongly condemning the live fire testing during the Balikatan 2026 exercises of a Tomahawk land attack missile of the United States from Tacloban Airport upon a target in Lower Nueva Ecija, both civilian sites, in violation of Philippine sovereignty, the constitutional state policy renunciating war as an instrument of national policy, and international humanitarian law prohibition of the use of civilian objects for military purposes, by Representatives Tino Elago and Co.
To the Committee on National Defense and Security.
House Resolution 993, resolution calling for the appropriate House committees to conduct an investigation in aid of legislation into the systemic failures of the National Solid Waste Management Framework in light of landfill incidents in Cebu City, Navotas City, and Rizal Province, with the end view of mandating sustainable infrastructure and rigorous regulatory oversight, by Representatives Sendanya, Diokno, Ismula, and Bagao.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 994, resolution condemning the baseless, malicious, and irresponsible allegations against Executive Secretary Ralph G. Recto and Governor Vilma Santos Recto made by Representative Leandro L. Levista in his privileged speech before the House of Representatives on May 5, 2026. By Representatives Recto, Bolilla, Colliantes, Dimacuja, and Luistro.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 995, resolution directing the House Committee on Energy to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation into the recent surge in electricity bills and the impact of the lifeline rate subsidy and other pass-through charges on Filipino consumers for the purpose of ensuring equitable, transparent, and sustainable electricity rates and protecting consumers from undue financial burdens, by Representatives Diokno, Sendanya, Ismula, and Bagao.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 996, a resolution calling the House Committee on Labor and Employment to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation into alleged labor violations and unfair labor practices committed against workers across companies under the Lopez Group, including ABS-CBN Corporation, Sky Cable Corporation, and related contractors such as Third Generation Services, Inc. and Source Tech Solutions, Inc., and to determine accountability enforcement gaps, including in labor inspection and regulation by the Department of Labor and Employment, and necessary legislative measures to strengthen worker protection, by Representative San Fernando.
To the Committee on Rules.
Messages from the Senate. Message dated May 5, 2026, informing the House of Representatives that on even date, the Senate designated Senators Aquino, Gatchalian, Camille A. Villar, Villanueva, and Alan Peter Cayetano as members of the Conference Committee to reconcile the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 1981, titled An Act Establishing the Private Basic Education Voucher Program and Appropriating Funds Therefore, repeating for the purpose RA 6728, or the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education as amended, and House Bill number 4744, titled An Act Establishing the Private Basic Education Voucher Program, providing for the creation of the Bureau of Private Education and appropriating funds therefore, repealing for the purpose sections 2, 3, 4-2, 4, 3, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13, and 15 of RA 8545, otherwise known as the Expanded Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act, which amended RA 6728, otherwise known as the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act.
To the Committee on Rules.
Message dated May 5, 2026, informing the House of Representatives on an even date, the Senate approved the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill 5939 and Senate Bill 1899, titled An Act Allowing the Department of Education the Flexibility to Determine the Pedagogical Approaches to be Implemented in the Basic Education Curriculum, amending for the purpose Section 5 of RA 10533, or the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013.
To the Committee on Rules.
Message dated May 5, 2026, informing the House of Representatives that on an even date, the Senate approved the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill 1937 and House Bill 4745, titled An Act Institutionalizing Support for Public Basic Education Schools in Geographically Isolated and Disadvantaged Areas and Underserved Communities and appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committee on Rules.
Subpoena duces tecum, pursuant to Section 153, Rule 24 of the Provisional Rules of the House of Representatives, transmitting the subpoena duces tecum dated April 28, 2026, issued by the Office of the Ombudsman, Re FF-C-Jan-26-0057, FF-C-Jan-26-0058, and FF-C-Jan-26-0063. Committee Report 269, submitted by the Special
Speaker,
Committee on Creative
Madam
Industries and
Speaker.
House Resolution 1001. Committee
Madam
Report number
Speaker.
270, submitted by the Committee on Flagship Programs and Projects on House Resolution 1003.
To the Committee on Rules.
Madam Speaker,
Yes. Honorable Toby Chanco, you're
Madam
recognized.
Speaker, can I know the nature and the title of the subpoena duces tecum from the Office of the Ombudsman?
Secretary General. Majority Leader.
Move to suspend.
Session suspended. Session resumed. The Secretary General will be providing you a copy, the Honorable Toby Chanco.
Madam Speaker, I want it read out in session because, first of all, subpoena duces tecum shouldn't be referred in the order of business because this is an administrative matter that should be acted upon by the Secretary General's office. So it should not be included in the additional reference of business because it should be acted upon by the Office of the Secretary General and should not be referred to the plenary.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, in relation to the motion and the inquiry of the Honorable Tiangco, we just wanted to clarify that the item being referred to earlier, Madam Speaker, is not a referral to the plenary. It is only a notification of the House, Madam Speaker, pursuant to Rule 24, Section 153 of the Rules of the House.
Honorable
Madam
Toby
Speaker.
Tiangco.
Yes, Madam Speaker, the explanation is well noted and accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, under the calendar of business for the day, I move to consider House Bill number 4706 as contained in the committee report number 141 submitted by the Committee on People's Participation, and for this purpose, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill.
There's a motion. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bill.
House Bill number 4706, an act amending Republic Act number 9418, otherwise known as the Volunteer Act of 2007, to declare the month of December as National Volunteer Month and December 5 as National Volunteer Day and for other purposes.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to open the period of sponsorship and debate, and that the chairperson of the Committee of People's Participation, the Honorable Maria Angela S. Garcia, be recognized to begin the sponsorship of the measure.
There's a motion. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved, and the Honorable Maria Angela Garcia of the 3rd District of Bataan is recognized for her sponsorship speech.
Madam Speaker, honorable leaders of this chamber, and distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. On behalf of the Committee on People's Participation, I rise to sponsor Committee Report number 141 and respectfully seek the approval of House Bill number 4706, entitled An Act Declaring the Month of December of every year as National Volunteer Month in the entire country, and institutionalizing the celebration of December 5 as National Volunteer Day, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 9418, otherwise known as the Volunteer Act of 2007. This measure seeks to institutionalize two important national observances: the declaration of December as National Volunteer Month and the observance of December 5 as National Volunteer Day, aligned with the globally recognized International Volunteer Day. This proposal is especially timely as the United Nations has declared 2026 as the International Volunteer Year, or IV 2026, recognizing volunteerism as a vital force in building stronger and a more sustainable communities. Volunteerism has long been deeply rooted in the Filipino identity. The spirit of bayanihan reflects our enduring culture of solidarity, compassion, and collective action. Across our communities, volunteerism continues to thrive, not only during times of calamity and crisis, but also in everyday acts of service that uplift our people and strengthen our nation. Despite reports of declining global generosity in recent years, the Philippines continues to rank among the countries with high levels of volunteer participation. This reflects the generosity of the Filipino people and our shared commitment to helping one another and in serving the common good. Our government likewise recognizes the important role of volunteers in nation building. Through partnerships among government agencies, civil society organizations, schools, faith-based groups, and the private sector, volunteerism continues to contribute significantly to education, healthcare, environmental protection, disaster response, and community development. by institutionalizing National Volunteer Month and National Volunteer Day. This measure seeks to further strengthen the culture of volunteerism in our country, encourage greater participation, especially among the youth, and formally recognize the invaluable contributions of Filipino volunteers. This proposal also builds upon earlier national initiatives recognizing volunteerism. Proclamation number 194, signed by President Corazon Aquino in 1987, declared every 5th day of December as International Volunteer Day for Economic and Social Development in the Philippines. Meanwhile, Proclamation number 55, signed by President Joseph Ejercito Estrada in 1998, declared the month of December as National Volunteer Month. House Bill number 4706 now seeks to institutionalize these observances through legislation, ensuring their continuity and lasting significance for future generations. Through this measure, we honor the countless Filipinos who freely give their time, skills, and compassion in service to others. Madam Speaker, I respectfully seek the support of this august chamber for the approval of House Bill number 4706. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no member who wishes to interpolate the sponsor, I move to close the period of sponsorship and debate.
An objection? Hearing none, the period of sponsorship, debate, and interpellation is hereby terminated. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to open the period of amendments.
An objection? Hearing none, the period of amendments is hereby opened. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no individual amendments, I move to close the period of amendments.
An objection? Hearing none, the period of amendments is hereby closed. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to vote on second reading House Bill number 4706.
There is a motion to approve House Bill 4706 as contained in Committee Report 141. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those who are not in favor say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 4706 is hereby approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to recognize the guests of Representative Jervil Luistro of the 2nd District of Batangas. They are from the Batangas 2 Electric Cooperative Incorporated, Danilo M. Gulfo, Siriaco B. Kalinisan, Editha Zara, Fernando C. Ambal, Dolores A. Bolano, Norberto M. Malibiran, Alma M. Mendoza, Mary Jean M. Ramos, Wilfredo F. Rosario, Agnes B. Valencia, Isagani M. Villanueva, Luella Laika N. Del Mundo, and Engineer Octavius M. Mendoza.
To the guests from Batangas 2 Electric Cooperative Incorporated, Batelec 2, headed by Mr. Danilo Gulfo, the guests, kayo ang nagbibigay liwanag sa buong Batangas. The guests of the legal luminary and our pride, the chairwoman of the Committee on Justice, the Honorable Attorney Jervil Jinky Beatrix Luistro, ikinagagalak namin ang inyong pagpasyal. Welcome to the House of the People. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, may we also recognize the guests of the Honorable Amado Carlos Bolilla IV of the 4th District of Batangas. They are from the Batangas Electric Cooperative, namely Mr. Danilo Gulfo, Mr. Alberto Luna, Mr. Marlino Braga, Mr. Siriaco Kalinisan, Ms. Editha Zara, Mr. Fernando Ambal, Mr. Henry Areta, Ms. Dolores Bolano, Ms. Claire Landicho, Mr. Norberto Malibiran, Ms. Alma Mendoza, Mr. Cesar Osenia, Ms. Mary Jean Ramos, Mr. Wilfredo Rosario, Ms. Agnes Valencia, Mr. Isagani Villanueva, Engineer Octavius Mendoza, and Ms. Luella Laika Del Mundo. Madam Speaker.
The guests of the Honorable Amado Carlos Bulilia IV, please rise to be acknowledged. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagpasyal. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, under the calendar of business for the day, I move to consider House Bill number 8420 as contained in Committee Report number 148. And for this purpose, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill.
The Secretary General is hereby directed to read the title of House Bill 8420.
House Bill 8420, an act defining technology-facilitated violence against women and their children, providing protective measures and prescribing penalties for violations thereof, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 9262, otherwise known as the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to open the period of sponsorship and debate and that the chairperson of the Committee on Women and Gender Equality
Any objection?
be recognized to begin the sponsorship of the measure.
Hearing none, the period of sponsorship, debate, and interpellation insofar as House Bill 8420 is hereby opened. And for this purpose, we recognize the hardworking chairman of the Committee on Gender Equality, who never rests and who never sleeps, the Honorable Ann Matibag of the 1st District of Laguna. Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. As chairperson of the Committee on Women and Gender Equality, I rise today with a deep sense of duty and urgency to sponsor and seek for the approval of Committee Report number 148 on House Bill number 8420 entitled An Act Defining Technology-Facilitated Violence Against Women and Their Children, Providing Protective Measures and Prescribing Penalties for Violations thereof, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 9262, otherwise known as the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004. Madam Speaker, our society today exists in two worlds, the physical and the digital. Technology has transformed the way we live, learn, work, communicate, and build relationships. It has connected people across distances and created new opportunities for education, business, governance, and social participation. But alongside these advancements comes a harsh reality. Technology has become a weapon used to threaten, to humiliate, to control, to exploit, to destroy dignity. Today, abuse no longer ends when the door closes. It follows women and children into their phones, their social media accounts, their private messages, their workplaces, and even their homes. This is the reality that House Bill number 8420 seeks to address. Republic Act number 9262 has long stood as a landmark law in protecting women and children from violence. But 20 years after its passage, we are confronted with new forms of abuse that were once unimaginable. The law must evolve because violence has evolved. This measure recognizes and defines technology-facilitated violence against women and their children, or TFVAUC, acts committed to digital platforms, information and communication technology, data misuse, online harassment, or other technological means that cause emotional, psychological, sexual, economic, or physical harm. Madam Speaker, this bill is not merely about technology. It is about human dignity. It is about safety. It is about ensuring that women and children are protected in every space, including the digital space. And this call resonates even more strongly today, following the participation of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. at the 70th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York. in his national statement before the United Nations, our dear President Marcos reminded the world, women must be present wherever decisions are made, in government, in business, in science, in diplomacy, and in peace building. He further emphasized, if women are educated, safe, able to work, able to lead, able to decide the course of their own lives, then a society is moving forward. And most importantly, he said, when women lead, nations move forward. Madam Speaker, these are not just words of aspiration, they are call to action. Because women cannot lead if they are silenced. They cannot thrive if they are constantly threatened. They cannot participate equally in society if fear and abuse follow them even in the digital world. This is why this measure is necessary. Among the salient features of this proposed law are the following: defining new and emergent online offenses. This bill finally recognizes modern forms of digital abuse, including the unauthorized recording, creation, alteration, or sharing of intimate images or videos, including AI-generated deepfakes. The creation of fake social media accounts to harass, shame, or impersonate victims. Cyber-stalking through hacked accounts, location tracking, or unauthorized access to personal data. Online threats, sexual exploitation, digital blackmail, and other forms of technology-enabled abuse. Madam Speaker, the pain caused by these acts does not disappear with a click. The damage can spread rapidly, remain online indefinitely, and leave life trauma. This bill imposes penalties of reclusion temporal and fines ranging from 300 to 500 pesos, recognizing the severe and long-lasting impact of digital violence. This sends a clear message. The digital space is not a safe haven for abusers. This bill empowers courts to direct digital platforms, internet service providers, and other entities to remove, block, or take down harmful content. For victims of online abuse, time is critical. Every hour of exposure can mean further humiliation, further harassment, and further trauma. This law provides a quicker and more responsive mechanism for protection. The measure also includes the paid leave benefit for employed victims from 10 days to 20 days. This gives survivors the necessary time to seek medical attention, psychological support, legal assistance, and personal recovery without fearing the loss of their livelihood. The bill mandates the Department of Justice to implement measures to protect the identity, location, and personal information of victims. In an age where information can be easily tracked, leaked, or exploited, protecting a victim's privacy is also protecting their safety. Madam Speaker, this proposed law is the result of years of consultation, study, and legislative work. It consolidates 10 related House bills reflecting the collective efforts of advocates, lawmakers, women's groups, legal experts, law enforcement agencies, digital rights advocates, and survivors themselves. This measure has been discussed across several Congresses. The problem has already been studied. The need has already been established. The time to act is now. Every day that this measure is delayed is another day that women and children remain exposed to digital abuse without adequate legal protection. Violence is violence, whether it is committed inside the home, on the streets, or through screen. As legislators, we cannot allow our laws to fall behind the realities faced by the people we are sworn to protect. The digital world should be a space for learning, connection, opportunity, and empowerment, not a place of fear, abuse, and silence. By passing House Bill 8420, we affirm that the rights, safety, and dignity of women and children shall be protected in every space, physical or digital. And in doing so, we answer the call of this generation to build a society where women are not only empowered to lead, but are also safe enough to live, speak, and participate, and mostly thrive. Madam Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I therefore respectfully and earnestly seek your full support for the immediate approval of Committee Report number 148 on House Bill number 8420. Maraming salamat at atin ang magandang bukas.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, would like to recognize Representative Kaka J. Bagao from the Lone District of Dinagat Islands for her sponsorship speech.
The strong advocate who never cedes to fight for women's rights, the Honorable Kaka Bagao, is hereby recognized to sponsor House Bill 8420.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand today to sponsor Committee Report number 148 or House Bill 8420 or the expanded Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act. This measure updates Republic Act number 9262 or the VAUC to meet the digital age, ensuring our laws protect women and children where they live today, not just in physical homes, but in digital spaces. This measure is a lifeline for women, especially in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, in the farthest islands of Dinagat, or in the highest mountains of the Cordilleras. A woman may be miles away from a courthouse, but she is often only a click away from her abuser. Data from Plan International Digital Violence Report 2020 shows that 58% of girls have experienced online harassment, and in rural settings, this often leads to digital silencing, where women withdraw from public life entirely. Locally, the Philippine National Police in 2023 reported a 152% increase in recorded cybercrimes against women and children compared to the previous years. For a woman in a remote area, digital harassment can lead to total social isolation with no physical sanctuary to turn to. House Bill 8420 addresses this by number 1, expanding jurisdiction. A survivor in a remote province no longer has to travel to the capital, so she can file a case where she resides at the time she learns of the offense. Number 2, empowering local support. It mandates LGUs and the DSWD to provide not just shelter, but counseling, psychosocial services, and livelihood assistance. It provides for identity protection. The DOJ will administer an identity location confidentiality program, providing survivors with substitute addresses to keep their actual whereabouts hidden from abusers. And lastly, paid leave. We're granting survivors a 20-day paid leave to attend to legal and medical needs, ensuring that seeking justice doesn't mean losing a paycheck. We are telling every Filipina, wherever she lives in the heart of Manila or the most distant sitio in Dinagat Islands, that her safety is non-negotiable. We're updating our shields for the digital age. Madam Speaker, let us pass House Bill 8420 because in our fight for a VAUC-free Philippines, dapat walang maliit, walang malayo, lahat mahalaga. Daghang salamat ug maayong hapon.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to now recognize the Representative Rene Luis M. Co. of Party List Kabataan for her sponsorship speech.
The Honorable Rene Luis Co. of Party List Kabataan is recognized for her sponsorship speech.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, esteemed colleagues,
at sa mga kababaihan at kabataang Pilipino na patuloy na lumalaban para sa isang lipunang ligtas at mapagpalaya, maalab na hapon sa inyong lahat. We stand today to sponsor the expanded Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act. Sa ating pagsusulong ng panukalang ito, pinatatalas natin ang sandata ng mga victim survivors laban sa mga bagong forma ng patriarchal abuse sa digital na panahon. Malayo na ang narating ng karahasan simula ng isabatas, ang Republic Act No. 9262 noong 2004. Back then, the internet was not the all-encompassing arena it is today. Ngunit sa ilalim ng ating kasalukuyang semi-colonial at semi-feudal na kaayusan, technology has been weaponized to treat women's bodies as commodities and targets of systemic oppression. Despite our previous victories with the Safe Spaces Act, glaring gaps remain in protecting women within the context of intimate or dating relationships. In this bill, we highlight that electric violence against women has emerged as a significant global issue carrying serious economic and societal consequences. Ang mga video scandals at online harassment ay madalas nang ginagamit bilang deliberate acts to silence and dominate women using information and communications technology. With this, Madam Speaker, we propose to redefine psychological violence to explicitly include acts committed through ICT devices. We define electronic violence or ICT-related violence as acts causing mental or emotional distress through the use of data and electronic media. Kasama po nito, 1, criminalizing unauthorized media, so recording, reproduction, or distribution of media showing the victim's private parts or sexual conduct without consent. Number 2, targeting cyber harassment, harassing, intimidating, or vilifying a woman through text messaging or creation of fake social media accounts with malice. And panghuli, stalking or hacking, stalking through GPS tracking or unauthorized hacking of personal social networking accounts. Para tiyakin na may pangil ang ating batas, we demand that these acts be punished by reclusion temporal. Furthermore, we propose that ICT
Control sa galaw ng kababaihan gamit ang smart devices at location data. Technology makes the harm faster, wider, and harder to escape, but accountability has not kept up. This is why this representation from Gabriela Women's Party is proud to likewise principally author and sponsor House Bill number 8420, defining technology-facilitated violence against women and their children, providing protective measures and prescribing penalties for violations thereof. This bill defines technology-facilitated violence against women and their children as all forms of violence committed through information and communication technologies, electronic devices, or digital media, ensuring accountability for physical, sexual, psychological, and economic harm, including recording and distributing unauthorized intimate photos, videos, or deepfakes, harassing or threatening through text, cyber or multimedia means, stalking by hacking accounts or exploiting location data, creating fake social media accounts with malicious intent. Injury from this TF vow is often minimized because there are no visible bruises. But the injuries are real from panic attacks, loss of sleep, and fear for safety, among others. Marami pa rin hindi lubos na nakakaunawa ng TF vow at ng lala nito. Kaya nga naman ang panukala na ito, ang House Bill number 8420 ay dapat magbigay daan sa mas marami pang awareness, raising, education at empowerment efforts. House Bill number 8420 also imposes penalties of reclusion temporal and stiffer fines from 300,000 to 500,000 pesos. It authorizes courts to issue protection orders for immediate blocking, blacklisting, shutdown, removal, or disabling of harmful uploads programs subject to due process. Madam Speaker, one particular amendment primarily forwarded by this representation from Gabriela Women's Party is extending the grant of paid leave for victims from the maximum of 10 up to the maximum of 20 days
which can be extendable as necessary. Likewise, we shall oblige employers to act on these applications the same day. Superiors who deny or fail to act on applications of 20-day paid leave shall be penalized. Kailangan rin tuloy-tuloy na tiyakin ang epektibong implementasyon at sapat na pondo para sa pagpapatupad ng mga existing na mandatory programs at services para sa mga victims ng VAUC. Mula sa pagkakaroon ng mga shelter, counseling, rehabilitation, livelihood, medical at legal assistance, habang napapangalagaan ang confidentiality sa mga kaso ng mga biktima. Sa mahalagang hakbang na ito, taus-pusong pasasalamat sa House Committee on Women and Gender Equality at sa lahat ng allies from all genders na patuloy na ipinaglalaban ang adhikain na ito. Most of all, our deepest tribute is for the women, the survivors, the advocates, the organizers, the unwavering voices who have refused to let violence against women be normalized. They have bravely fought through the shame, the fear, the indifference, demanding justice, demanding equality, demanding accountability, and striving to dismantle the climate of impunity with their collective persistence. Kaya sa lahat ng patuloy na nakakaranas ng violence against women of VAU, hindi kayo nag-iisa. Sama-sama nating palakasin ang suporta at tulong para sa isa't isa. Isang hakbang pasulong ang House Bill No. 8420 para sa system upgrade sa proteksyon laban sa abuso sa mga kababaihan. Ngunit hindi dito natatapos ang laban. Hindi lang system upgrade, kundi system change ang kailangan. Baguhin na ang sistema na pinamumugaran ng kultura ng abuso at diskriminasyon. Wakasan na ang sistema ng kawalan ng hustisya at pananagutan. Itaguyod ang sistemang may tunay na pagkilala sa pantay na karapatan at lumilikha ng pantay at masaganang oportunidad para sa lahat. Maraming salamat at ipasa na ang House Bill No. 8420.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I now move to recognize our Representative Laila M. De Lima of the ML Party List for her manifestation.
The Honorable Laila De Lima of Mamamayang Party List and our legal luminary, the former Secretary of Justice, who says
Maraming salamat po,
Defender of
Madam
Women is recognized for a manifestation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is not an interpellation. It is a manifestation of support. So magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. I stand before this body to support a measure that strikes at the very heart of contemporary injustice. With profound conviction, I manifest my unwavering and steadfast support for this bill, House Bill No. 8420, or the expanded VAUC Act. Ang panukalang ito ay hindi lamang isang hakbang, ito ay isang imperative response sa isang umuusbong na krisis na nakatagong sa likod ng mga screen at digital interface. Sa panahon kung saan ang teknolohiya ay naging bahagi ng ating pang-araw-araw na buhay, ang naging sandata din ito ng mga nang-aabuso. Ang social media, electronic communications at iba't ibang digital platforms ay hindi na basta tulay ng komunikasyon. Sila ay naging theaters of violence, kung saan ang mga kababaihan at mga bata ay patuloy na nagiging biktima ng psychological torment, sexual harassment, economic coercion, reputational destruction, at iba pang anyo ng digital abuse na walang katapusan. By formally recognizing and penalizing technology-facilitated violence against women and their children, or TFVAUC, this bill accomplishes what was long overdue. It closes a dangerous legal gap that has allowed abusers to exploit technological loopholes with impunity. This measure strengthens existing legal protections under RA 9262, transforming a static law into a living instrument responsive to contemporary realities. It appropriately expands the definition of psychological violence to encompass acts perpetrated through electronic and information and communications technology, or ICT, devices, establishing unambiguous mechanisms for protection, accountability, and enforcement. Equally commendable and transformative are the bill's provisions authorizing the issuance of protective orders for the blocking, removal, or disabling of harmful online content and malicious applications. More profoundly still, this measure recognizes the humanity of victim survivors by granting them additional leave benefits during the pendency of protection orders, investigations, and criminal proceedings. These provisions acknowledge a truth that statistics cannot capture: the severe and lasting psychological toll of online abuse. They provide victims not merely legal recourse, but the space and support necessary to pursue healing, recovery, and justice. In passing this measure, we send a resolute message that our nation will not tolerate the weaponization of technology against our most vulnerable citizens, and that the law will stand as their shield and sword. In view of the compelling imperatives outlined, I manifest full, unequivocal support for the immediate passage of House Bill number 8420 and urgently call this honorable body to advance its swift approval into law. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no other member who wishes to interpolate the sponsor, I move to close the period of sponsorship and debate.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period of sponsorship, debate, and interpellation on House Bill 8420 is hereby terminated. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to open the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period of amendments is hereby opened. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, there being no committee nor individual amendments, I move to close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Hearing none, said motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to vote on second reading House Bill number 8420.
There is a motion to vote on second reading House Bill 8420 as contained in Committee Report number 148. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those who are not in favor say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8420 is approved on second reading. Mabuhay ang kababaihan. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I would like to recognize and welcome the guests of Representative Jefferson F. Konghun of the 1st District of Zambales, the officials and members of Scatoda Zone 4 and 5, and 3 officials of Barangay Kawag from Subic, Zambales, headed by Renan B. Giao, the President of Zone 4, and Omar A. Pebanco, the President of Zone 5. Madam Speaker.
To the officials and members of Scatoda Zone 4 and 5, and the officials from Barangay Kawag of Subic, Zambales, please rise to be acknowledged, headed by respective presidents, Renan B. Giao and Omar A. Pebanco. They are the guests of our Deputy Speaker, Honorable Jefferson Konghun. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo. Ikinagagalak namin ang inyong pagpasyal. Welcome to the House of the People. Majority Leader.
Move to suspend for a few minutes.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, under the calendar of unfinished business, I move to resume consideration of House Bill number 8389 contained in Committee Report number 143, submitted by the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms, and that the Chairman of the Committee, Honorable Zia Alonto Adjong, be recognized, Madam Chair.
Secretary General is hereby directed to read the title of House Bill 8389 as contained in Committee Report 143.
House Bill 8389, an act prohibiting political dynasties in national and local elective offices.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
What's the pleasure of the Honorable Erice?
May I call for a roll call? It
Session
seems that
suspended.
we don't have a quorum.
Session resumed. May we request the Secretary General to resume the reading of House Bill, the reading of the title of House Bill 8389.
House Bill 8389, an act prohibiting political dynasties in national and local elective offices.
There was a pending motion to recognize the sponsor of said measure, the Honorable Zia Adyong of the 1st District of Lanao del Sur. The Honorable Adyong is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Madam Speaker, I am now, it's my distinct privilege to sponsor House Bill 8389, and I am now ready to welcome interpellation from the floor.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to recognize the lady from Party List ML, Representative Leila M. De Lima, for her interpellation.
The Honorable Deputy Minority Leader from Party List ML, Mamamayang Liberal, the Honorable Leila De Lima is hereby recognized for her interpellation.
Maraming salamat po, Madam Speaker. And I thank my party mate, Congressman Egay Erice, for accommodating my interpellation today and withdrawing for today his question on the quorum. Will the very esteemed sponsor yield to questions?
Of course, Mr. Speaker, I will welcome the questions from the Honorable Lady from the ML Party List, Congresswoman De Lima.
Para po sa akin, there's one fundamental question. Does this bill, the substitute consolidated bill, House Bill 8389, actually prohibit political dynasties, or does it merely create the appearance of doing so? The records would show, that's my preliminary statement, it's not yet the questions po, Madam Speaker. We held three public consultations. We received 23 position papers. We invited several resource persons, including 2 retired Supreme Court justices, a former COMELEC chairman, but it was objected to by 2
members of the electoral committee that objected to the adoption of a working draft as a version of the committee to be submitted to this plenary, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
So dun po, yung 8 pong bills na winidraw. Ito po yung Bill number 209, authored by Representatives Co and Tinio. House Bill 2037, authored by Congressman Erice. House Bill 2131, authored by this representation. House Bill 4784, authored by Representative Elago. House Bill 5905, authored by Representatives Bagao, Sendanya, Jokno, and Ismula. House Bill 6925, authored by Representative Yap. House Bill 7096, authored by Representative Montes and Tan, and House Bill 7513, authored by Representative Abante. Would the distinguished sponsor confirm that those were the 8 withdrawn bills?
Madam Speaker, I have full trust and confidence in the list of House bills that were mentioned by the good lady from ML. And I believe, I don't have the exact House numbered bills right with me, but they were quite the exact House bills that were withdrawn, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
It was confirmed, the distinguished sponsor confirmed, that it was the D. N. Marcos bill that was adopted as a working draft. May we know what is the standard for choosing the D. N. Marcos bill? Is it because it had the most number of co-authors?
Yes, Madam Speaker. The one that we anticipate, Madam Speaker, in trying to forward or to deliver a committee report is based on the version of the House bills that garnered the most number of co-authorships. Because we want to anticipate, Madam Speaker, that this would go through the process of adopting it in its final version, Madam Speaker. And so the presumption of this honor of this humble representation along with the members of the committee, is that since it has garnered the most number of co-authorships, then that would also translate into actual votes in the plenary, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
And that was the only standard because it has the most number of co-authors.
Not
Wala na
only-
pong ibang standard na ginamit.
Not
Yung standard, for example, na it contains the features, the exact features, the authentic features that would really show that it is an anti-political dynasty bill.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, there are also other considerations, Madam Speaker. First is the degree of consanguinity. As the good lady from ML Party List, Representative De Lima, can also recall that during the first hearing that we conducted by the Committee on Electoral Reform, we asked forward question to COMELEC if fourth degree or second degree would be more preferable to them, insofar as how they can actually conduct the election efficiently. To them, Madam Speaker, the response from the COMELEC, Madam Speaker, is that it would be a logistical nightmare if we extend from the degree of prohibition from second degree to the fourth degree of consanguinity. Also, Madam Speaker, there were also members from the CONCON, delegates from the CONCON, Madam Speaker, who also argued that it would be more practical, Madam Speaker, to hold the second degree of consanguinity rather than the fourth degree consanguinity.
I will
these
also
are,
go-
Madam, if the good lady from ML Party List would allow me to continue on responding to her question, these are also part of the consideration, Madam Speaker, because many of the versions, the 25 versions, actually do have similarities. In the similarities, Madam Speaker, is dominantly within that proposal of second degree of consanguinity and affinity, and not the fourth degree, as some of the bills that were also referred to the committee that were later on withdrawn, Mrs. Speaker, by the authors themselves, which is fourth degree, Madam Speaker. And these are the consideration, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Your
I will
Honor.
also go into that supposed issue, that the issue of supposed practicality or easy enforceability of limiting it only to second degree. Pero yun na nga po ang pinagtataka ko. If the D.N. Marcos bill was the one chosen to be the working draft, we know that that bill, HB 6771, ang nakalagay po doon, fourth degree of consanguinity or affinity. So you replace the fourth degree of consanguinity or affinity in that bill, which is a working draft, to second degree. Doon sa sinabi niyo pong reason tungkol sa easier enforceability.
Yes.
Po ba?
Yes, Madam Speaker, that is correct. Because number one, if I may elaborate further, Madam Speaker, because the good lady from ML Party List touched on the issue of practicability and efficiency. In fact, Madam Speaker, the COMELEC, when they argued that this would be part of the consideration by which the COMELEC conducts election, because practicality and the logistical possibility, it would be more convenient for the COMELEC, is not only a position taken by COMELEC in some of the guests that we had invited. To name a few, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, the former Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Ascuna, saying that second degree is more practical and more easier for COMELEC. Apart from that, taken into the position of the COMELEC, it is actually also anchored, Madam Speaker, on the exact ruling of the Supreme Court, Pamatong versus COMELEC, where it says, Madam Speaker, that the logistical consideration could also be a basis for COMELEC to formulate a much expedient, much convenient, more effective, and more efficient delivery of, number one, items paraphernalia, and to ensure, Madam Speaker, that those who are to vote in an election scheduled in every 3 years, Madam Speaker, will have a more convenient, safe, and orderly manner by which they will cast their votes. So these are, Madam Speaker, the things that I think, to me, in my humble opinion, why COMELEC also came out with the position that second degree would be more practical and more convenient for COMELEC to schedule and actually effective in conducting an election every 3 years or 6 years for the national positions, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
The good sponsor has mentioned the name of former Supreme Court Justice Ascuna. My recollection of that deliberations, that committee hearing, I think it's on the second the second committee hearing in February 10, 2026. Yes, he did mention that he is for the second degree of consanguinity or affinity. Pero ang sa tingin ko po sa kanya, I sense that he was not really very firm about it and that he was just saying that it can be considered because, again, the reasons of practicality or easier confrontation. I want to know more about the committee's analysis showing why the fourth degree is unenforceable. Because this analysis is not in the committee report. It is not in the fact sheet. It was not presented in any hearing. The practicality argument was asserted during the hearing, and also now we heard it from the good sponsor, but it was never really demonstrated. Why enforceable? Why easier? Why more practical? What's the evidentiary basis for this? Is there any empirical data with respect to the enforceability of the difficult enforceability, if not unenforceability, when we have not tried it yet?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, since we don't have an exact anti-political dynasty featuring these restrictions, Madam Speaker, it is safe to assume and it is safe to say, Madam Speaker, that we don't have an actual empirical data that we can base our consideration, Madam Speaker, as to the practicality of the second and fourth degree. The basis for that, Madam Speaker, as I've cited earlier, is that COMELEC also came out with the position because it is also backed up by a ruling by the Supreme Court, Pamatong versus COMELEC, that logistical consideration could also be a basis, Madam Speaker, for the COMELEC to conduct a more expedient, more convenient, safest way to conduct an election and to make sure that electorates can actually go to the polling places and cast their votes orderly and safe. That's number one. Number two, Madam Speaker, is that the COMELEC, anticipating that there will be certain degree of prohibition, Madam Speaker, it would also cost the COMELEC additional for them, Madam Speaker, it would be burdensome. This is according to them. It will be burdensome because it would cost additional legwork, not only formulating a certain policy, but legwork down to the barangay level, Madam Speaker. Say, for example, there's a cousins. Fourth degree is actually, the fourth degree of consanguinity and affinity actually reaches to a first degree cousin, Madam Speaker, Your Honor. Say, for example, one is residing in Pampanga and the other one is residing in Mindanao, somewhere in Mindanao. And they chose to run simultaneously in an election. One maybe probably run for a different office. But since by virtue of their relationship and their fourth degree relationship, it would be, according to COMELEC, a logistical nightmare to even trace these candidates who have shared the same family name. Not to mention, Madam Speaker, the consanguinity. We're not talking about the affinity alone, but we're also talking about the consanguinity, or those degrees that by virtue of marriage can also be captured by this prohibition. That is number two, Madam Speaker. And number three, to give you a much clearer example, Madam Speaker, the current mayor of Pasig City is cousin to the vice mayor of Quezon City. Of course, Madam Speaker, we do not want to deprive Pasig City of their mayor, napaka-esteemed na mayor, magaling na mayor. If we probably allow fourth degree of consanguinity and affinity, din sino po ang tatakbo sa kanila? Alam po natin, ang Pasig City, ang kanilang mayor ay napakagaling. No? Proud po ang hindi lang po ang Pasig pero ang buong mundo. Kung fourth degree po, ang consanguinity and affinity, yung restriction, masasali din po yung isa sa magigiting na Vice Mayor ng NCR na si Gian Santos. We know for a fact, Madam Speaker, that by virtue of their relationship, if, for example, implemented the fourth degree of consanguinity and affinity, we will deprive of good leaders, of possible good leaders, Madam Speaker, who can actually join public service and serve their respective communities, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Thank you, distinguished sponsor.
I'm sorry if I have a lengthy response to that, Madam Speaker.
Yes, those are the arguments, in fact.
I'm sorry?
But, those are the arguments, in fact, for that. The practicability, the supposed logistical nightmare that the COMELEC would encounter. But you will agree with me that if we put it into the law, if it is really fourth degree of consanguinity or affinity, Wala naman pong choice ang COMELEC kundi gumawa ng mga paraan, ng mechanisms na magiging mas madali sa kanila yung enforceability of this provision on the fourth degree of consanguinity or affinity. Di ho ba? Ang importante is yung tanong, alin ba talaga ang malapit sa espiritu, sa intent ng framers of the Constitution? Yung pagbabawal within the second degree of consanguinity lang or within the fourth degree of consanguinity or affinity? Because nga, madaling, ang daling ipasa lang dun sa iba pa ng mga kamag-anak, sa mga pinsan, sa mga pamangkin, sa mga uncle, sa mga auntie. And we are such a close, our families are close clans. And therefore, the power is still there. The concentration of power is still there. So in terms of being faithful to the spirit and intent of the Constitution, prohibiting anti-political dynasty, hindi ho ba mas malapit sa spirit ng Konstitusyon kung ito ay i-extend talaga natin to fourth degree of consanguinity or affinity? I must confess, distinguished sponsor, that my bill actually originally placed it at second degree of consanguinity or affinity. I was also thinking about those supposed logistical nightmare. But on second thought, on deeper reflection, kasi ang mananaig dapat dito, ano yung pinaka-spirit and intent of the 1987 Constitution in prohibiting political dynasties?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, just because the good lady from ML Party List mentioned about the framers of our Constitution, in fact, when we had the sideline discussion, Madam Speaker, during the committee hearing, it was actually it was admitted, no less than those who have actually sat in the commission in formally adopting the 1987 Philippine Constitution that we have right now, that the degree of consanguinity was never, Madam Speaker, was never resolved. In fact, the reason why they are now leaving that definition, Madam Speaker, to the House of Representatives, to Congress, for that matter, is they haven't actually satisfactorily decided on which degree of consanguinity would be applied in and will be reflected in the Constitution. Number two, Madam Speaker, they have admitted, Madam Speaker, that the original intent was to place a first degree of consanguinity, meaning mag-asawa lang at mag-ama at magnanay. There was actually even an attempt, Madam Speaker, to really remove the anti-political dynasty. That's why we say that the anti-political dynasty is not really a prohibition, but a regulation, Madam Speaker, Your Honor. Now, going back to the issue, what is the exact intention of the spirit of the Constitution under Section 26, Article 2 of the 1987 Constitution, the very clear answer, Madam Speaker, is even the framers of the Constitution have not really agreed on that. They're just placed there in order to, in order to counter the possible building up of political power per jurisdiction, Madam Speaker. But as to the degree of consanguinity, the original version and the original proposal was actually to place it first degree of consanguinity. So if we compare the current proposal right now, Madam Speaker, that is even a better version of what they have already initially discussed and approved, and eventually could not even resolve, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, I take that answer, but with reservation. I'll go to another point.
Okay, thank you.
This bill addresses only the simultaneous holding of positions within the second degree of consanguinity or affinity, simultaneous holding within the same level of governance, within the same province, within national position, and then within the House of Representatives, within the same province, within the same city, within the same barangay. Therefore, so walang succession ban, just the simultaneous holding. Therefore, a governor may be succeeded by the spouse, then by his child, then by his sibling, indefinitely, so long as they do not hold office at the exact same time. I wonder, is that an anti-political dynasty bill if its very definition legalizes the arrangements our Constitution set out to dismantle? Can the sponsor explain how a bill with no succession prohibition fulfills a constitutional mandate designed precisely to stop that pattern? Bakit ho walang prohibition on succession when it happens all the time. So how can that stop the cycle of power concentration within the same families?
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, again, the appreciation of the committee, Madam Speaker, is not whimsical. It's not whimsical, it's not arbitrary. In fact, our consideration, Madam Speaker, is this is actually an improvement of the current system that we have. We do not have an anti-political dynasty. That's number one. Number two consideration, Madam Speaker, is that based on the very definite, we want to balance it out, Madam Speaker, between the right to vote and the right to be voted upon. As a chairperson of the Human Rights Commission, Madam Speaker, I believe, Madam Speaker, the good lady from ML Party List is very much aware that not only it is enshrined in our Constitution, Section 1, Paragraph 2 of the Constitution, Madam Speaker, in also a separate article, Madam Speaker, on the Constitution, Article 5, which is the right to suffrage, because we cannot separately appreciate the right to vote and the right to be voted upon. Number three, Madam Speaker, is that based on international covenants and treaties, the right to be voted upon under, Madam Speaker, under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and as well as, Madam Speaker, as well as Article 5 of the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. It is placed there that the right to vote and the right to be voted upon, Madam Speaker, are preferential rights. Since we are, Madam Speaker, a democratic Republican country, we also give value to the right of every citizen to participate in an electoral reform or any form of service, public service, Madam Speaker. It's either through an elective position or otherwise, Madam Speaker. So these are considerations, Madam Speaker, that we also take into account, Madam Speaker. We want to balance it out because running, Madam Speaker, for an elective office does not necessarily mean winning. A political dynasty only happens when there is a concentration of power within locality, Madam Speaker. Say, for example, a sitting mayor is a partner or spouse to a vice mayor, or one of his siblings, or his father or his wife is also serving in the city council. That is, to us, Madam Speaker, is a concentration of power because it will also, number one, threatens transparency, accountability, and check and balances, Madam Speaker. So we allow others who are willing to participate, Madam Speaker, in an electoral exercises without necessarily, Madam Speaker, trying to curtail their right to vote and to be voted upon. And I'm sure, Madam Speaker, the good lady from ML Party List, being a human rights advocate, do understand that the right to suffrage and the right to be voted upon, Madam Speaker, is a preferential right because that is the basis of a Republican democratic country which we have, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Indeed, Madam Speaker, the right to vote and be voted upon is a preferential, if not a fundamental right. There's no debate on that. But that particular right cannot be treated in isolation of other provisions of the Constitution, other principles or precepts in the Constitution about banning political dynasties. Strictly, if you don't want to use banning or prohibiting, regulate, if you prefer the word regulation, then it has to be strictly regulated.
Madam Speaker, Your Honor, again, we also do have these principles, Madam Speaker, as our primary basis to balance between what we are proposing, restricting families to dominate a political unit, Madam Speaker, from that of the right to suffrage and to be voted upon. Again, Madam Speaker, I've also said it in my previous interpellation that the way our government is structured and designed is based on jurisdiction, Madam Speaker. So meaning to say they have separate constituencies. And again, the belief that if one belongs to a similar, the same family, Madam Speaker, automatically they will be voted and they will actually be declared winner in a particular election. But that is not the case, Madam Speaker. What we want to avoid here, Madam Speaker, is the build-up of monopoly of power within a specific locality. But we also do not want we also do not want to deprive citizens, Madam Speaker, beyond the second degree of consanguinity and affinity to exercise their right to exercise their right to participate in an electoral exercises, because that is in fact in compliance with our Constitution and also in compliance with other treaties, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, that is recognized by our country, Madam Speaker, in Your Honor. And so, again, going back to the second degree, because this has been the contention of the good lady from ML Party List, we also do give credence and value to the position of COMELEC, Madam Speaker, because again, it is the commission that handles the actual election, Madam Speaker. So we derive our appreciation by which we are actually guided in formulating policies. Because we also do not want, in real time, that COMELEC would be burdened with logistical support, and there's no other agencies that we can actually ask and inquire to other than COMELEC when it comes to the issue of electoral exercises, Madam Speaker, Your Honor. That's why we give value and credence to the proposal, Madam Speaker, of COMELEC, that instead of fourth degree of consanguinity, which would cost them too much expenses in trying to really assess and trace the family and familial connection of one candidate in Luzon and the other candidate in Visayas, it will be more practical, according to them, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, to have and settled with the second degree of consanguinity, because it would be more faster to trace, more convenient and more faster to implement, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, in an electoral exercises, Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, the distinguished sponsor has tackled several points or several issues. Now, on the matter, he did tackle the matter of that this bill is addressing monopoly of power, or concentration of power. But my point, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, is that how can this address power concentration? Why we are not precluding power concentration if we stand by a provision not prohibiting succession. Precisely when there's succession, there is still concentration of power in one family. The next point that struck me in the statements of the very distinguished sponsor is that, well, this bill, what we're tackling now, is an improvement, because there's never been an anti-political dynasty effort or anti-political dynasty bill that has reached this particular stage at the plenary.
There was one.
There was one.
Yeah, the one version during the 16th Congress,
Okay.
Madam Speaker.
So
Your Honor.
there's
Sorry
a distinguished.
to
Thank
correct
you.
you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you for that information. The distinguished sponsor now is saying that this is essentially saying that this is a good starting point. Now, but we have heard the starting point argument before in previous Congresses, 16th, 17th, 18th, and in the 19th. My question is, at what point does a starting point become an ending point? Because this bill, once enacted, will be cited for decades as proof that the constitutional mandate has been satisfied, even as dynasties continue uninterrupted. Dynasties would continue uninterrupted if we don't ban succession, if we limit only to second degree, if we do not cover, and we remove that, the same level of governance standard. In the same, only within the same province is the prohibition applicable, is the ban applicable. But if you have another relative running as governor in another province, that is no longer political dynasty. That is what this bill is saying. So how can the dynasties continue uninterrupted if we don't start the proper way at this point, altogether being very strict about political dynasties?
Madam Speaker, if we again, allow me, Madam Speaker, to again go back to my earlier explanation, Madam Speaker, is that because of the duly recognized, not only within our country but even internationally, that the right to run and the right to be voted upon is a preferential right, Madam Speaker. That's why it's not even an issue of political and civic right, it's an issue of human rights, of a basic right, Madam Speaker. So we want to be compliant with the spirit of the Constitution. At the same time, we also want to balance with other, Madam Speaker, with other sections or articles in the Constitution, so that we would have an anti-political dynasty, at the same time recognizing the inherent and basic right of one to vote and to be voted upon. Again, Madam Speaker, there is no guarantee that once a certain family members run for a certain positions, respective positions differently, there's no guarantee, Madam Speaker, that they will all win. Why? Because the Constitution and our whole system that is designed is that we give preference to the voters to choose their own leaders, Madam Speaker. That is, in fact, the discussion that they had during the preliminary deliberation when the framers of the Constitution was actually discussing the proposal of anti-political dynasty. How can we balance the right of the people to choose the leaders versus that of restricting or imposing a mechanism wherein there won't be any monopoly of power? Second, Madam Speaker, the issue, Madam Speaker, of succession, again, is entirely, Madam Speaker, does not happen every now and then in every election. I'm sure, Madam Speaker, the good lady from ML Party List would agree with me that there are a couple of times that political families, Madam Speaker, were outvoted in one particular election, Madam Speaker. Because we believe, Madam Speaker, and the Constitution believes that the right to select their leaders would be given and will be secured and will be given to the people themselves, Madam Speaker, in honor. And the way that we design the structure of our governance, Madam Speaker, is that it is jurisdictional. Even in the local government code, Madam Speaker, it is jurisdictional. A governor does not have control over a congressman. A congressman does not have a direct control over the mayors. They may belong to the certain geographical location, but in each particular respective positions, one does not have a direct control over one political unit, and vice versa, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, I'll go to my next question. Can this bill be truly called anti-political dynasty bill if a family can simultaneously control 3 provincial governorships, and this bill would have nothing to say about it? Because as I see it, under this bill, a family may simultaneously hold the governorships of Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, and La Union, 3 contiguous provinces. The bill's own fact sheet explicitly states it allows spouses and relatives to run in other provinces except in the province where they have incumbent relatives in power. So is that a genuine anti-political dynasty bill? Families simultaneously controlling 3 provincial governorships. Ang difference lang is that these are of the different territory.
Well, that's a rhetorical question, Madam Speaker. So I would also answer respond to the good lady from the ML Party List with my own personal interpretation. Yes, it is an anti-political dynasty mechanism, this version, Madam Speaker, because it actually weakens a possible build-up concentration of political family within locality. As to whether they would be allowed, again, number 2, that is a possibility. But there's a second possibility, that they may not be able to win in an election, Madam Speaker. So which one actually has that concrete, probably, basis for us to say that, in one particular region, different individuals can actually, occupy different offices of different provinces. That's a possibility. But the possibility number 2, which actually happens all the time, is that hindi naman ho nangyayari yon at hindi naman po na sila nananalo. The point here, Madam Speaker, is occupying an actual occupancy does not necessarily mean, or running for an office does not necessarily translate in an actual occupancy of a candidate to that position once the election is done. Number 3, Madam Speaker, is that Yun po yung sabi ng saligang batas natin, we give preference to the right of suffrage to vote and to be voted upon. So I personally, if you ask my humble opinion, Madam Speaker, we cannot substitute our own discernment and translate it into law, Madam Speaker. For the specific voters in a particular election or in a particular locality, Madam Speaker, what we're trying again to prove to this to the honorable body, Madam Speaker, is this is an attempt to finally address and resolve the issue of power concentration in one locality. Whether or not we are willing to sacrifice the right of the populace to vote and to be voted upon, that is, again, an issue, Madam Speaker, which I personally does not reflect the sentiment of my co-members in the committee. That's not willing actually to be questioned, Madam Speaker, before any of our standing courts, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
I respectfully disagree, Madam Speaker. I do believe that if a family can legally hold the governorship, the mayoralty, and a congressional seat over the same territory all at the same time, then that is not a genuine anti-political dynasty bill. At this point, Madam Speaker, I want to draw the body's attention to a structural flaw that is, I believe, the most consequential in this bill. And it lies in the relationship between Section 5 and Section 3, subparagraph C.
Madam
Section
Speaker, may I ask
3C
the lady if is she referring to the draft bill, Madam Speaker?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Madam Speaker. Section 3C and Section 5 of the bill, 8389.
Yes, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Section 3C defines elective positions by sorting them into separate, distinct categories: national positions, legislative district, provincial level, city municipal level, and barangay level.
That is correct, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Section 5 then uses the same separate categories as the unit of prohibition. It forbids relatives from simultaneously holding positions within the same level of local government. For me, the result is what I would call an engineered blind spot. Under this bill, a father can be governor, while his son is mayor of a city within that very province, and his daughter is a district representative covering the same territory. Magkaibang level ng local government, ang provincial at ang city municipal, kaya walang paglabag sa bill na ito. The point of reference in this bill is government level, not territory, not constituency. Does the distinguished sponsor agree that under this wording, a political dynasty can legally concentrate power over an entire province, governor, mayor, and district representatives, so long as relatives simply avoid being elected to the same level of local government? We're not talking here now about the chances of winning, and especially if they all win. If they all win, then absolutely there is political dynasty.
Madam Speaker, again, I respect the position of the good lady from the ML party list, that these are, since we don't have an actual restriction on anti-political dynasty, Madam Speaker, again, and I'm sure she would agree with me, that this is something as a reform, is a progress move from the one that we don't have right now. This is actually, the introduction of this is a leap towards that vision of restricting monopoly of power. And I'm sure she would agree with me, Madam Speaker. But that is, again, a rhetorical question. That can happen, and that can also not happen, Madam Speaker. But let me just cite to you, Madam Speaker, again, the concentration, Madam Speaker, of power is jurisdictional. Meaning to say, in one locality, if there is elected officials, say for example in a province or in a city, that actually shares this not only family but goes home to the same household, Madam Speaker, that is, to me, Madam Speaker, would give them a due advantage in abusing the resources of their locality, and that would actually be a way to formulate or to build up their own concentration of power, Madam Speaker. That is what this bill is trying to address. Now, Madam Speaker, as to the effect of this, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure the good lady from earlier, the good lady from ML Party List want me to give and concrete empirical data that we could possibly derive our conclusion in this plenary whether this anti-political dynasty is effective or not. Then I will give her, Madam Speaker, an exact data on the effect of the second degree of consanguinity in affinity. Number one, Madam Speaker, there are about 700, 2,000. Just to give you, if the good lady from ML Party List would allow me, just to give you some purview of what would be the possible, and these are based on the empirical data, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
I would go with that if that can just be furnished to me.
Yeah,
in the
I will
in
give.
the interest of time, instead of going
Yes,
over it.
okay. Yes, I will give the, provide the good lady that, this data, Madam Speaker. But
Salamat po.
maraming salamat din po. So again, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, again, this is a leap from the current status that we have right now. With the absence of anti-political dynasty mechanism, this is in fact an improvement of the current status that we have. And number two, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, again, with the rhetorical possibility, within that possibility, one possibility, it might happen, the other possibility, it will not happen. And number two, Madam Speaker, we can argue all day long about whether the government is designed structurally or designed in a way or jurisdictionally. We can argue all day, Madam Speaker, Your Honor. But the point is, one constituency has a certain nuances and a certain uniqueness, Madam Speaker, from that of a different locality. That's why you have, Madam Speaker, different sets of officers voted in different jurisdiction, voted in different respective positions, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, so that we can actually ensure, Madam Speaker, that one jurisdiction or one political position does not interfere or intervene directly with the affairs of one jurisdiction or political unit, Madam Speaker, Your Honor. So, maski magkakapare, maski isang lugar po sila, that can possibly happen, but it can also be not happen, Madam Speaker. That is my point that I'm trying to argue, Madam Speaker, and to explain to the good lady from ML Party List, Madam Speaker, which, by the way, have a legal basis and constitutional basis for us to promote and uphold and safeguard the right of these people to choose their leaders in different jurisdictions, in different localities, in an electoral exercises, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Thank you. I do not wish to further belabor that point, especially in the light of the divergence in our views on the matter. So I wish to go to another point. Kapansin-pansin po, distinguished sponsor, na wala po tayong provision dito sa bill na to addressing dynastic adaptation through the party list system. Under this bill, nothing prevents the relative of a governor, senator, or congressman from being nominated as a party list representative. The bill is completely silent on it. Was this an oversight or a deliberate feature?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
No mention about the party list.
I understand, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, I understand. And Madam Speaker, the reason for this, Madam Speaker, is there is a separate bills that were referred to the committee, Madam Speaker, Your Honor. And so we would try to specifically and particularly put emphasis on the party list by treating it as a separate discussion altogether, Madam Speaker. So in order that we can actually vote or decide or explain or discuss or deliberate on a certain provisions in the Constitution which has no definition, we intend, Madam Speaker, to provide legal and technical definition by virtue of by citing a specific consanguinity or affinity. But as to the party list reform,
In the party list.
yes, there is a separate discussion, Madam Speaker, on that, and we can assure the good lady from the ML Party List that we will tackle in the Reform Party List Act because number one, it is included in the LEDAC priority of the President, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Madam Speaker, that is on the assumption or premise that we're going to have a party list reform law. There is nothing wrong if we tackle it already, include it already in this anti-political dynasty bill, and have another similar provision in the anti-political and in the party list reform bill.
Yeah, Mrs.
So why
Speaker.
not here when this is supposed to be the overarching bill with respect to political dynasties? And dynastic relationship certainly exists also in party lists.
Mrs. Speaker, again, the party list system, Mrs. Speaker, is represented by per party organization. The nomination for party list representatives is actually based on the nomination of per party. The elector, that's one of the striking difference between the one that we are actually proposing
Yes.
here, which is a direct voting of a particular candidate in every election. The party list system, Madam Speaker, is those who have gathered the highest number of votes per party in that individual candidates, Madam Speaker. And so, because of that striking difference, Madam Speaker, Your Honor, it is my humble opinion, since there were also other bills that tackles the Reform Party List Act, because this should be a more comprehensive discussion on this, Madam Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, we decided, since it is a separate bill that was introduced by some of our colleagues here, Madam Speaker, we also tend to separately discuss the Reform Party List Act, Madam Speaker, and we also do avoid, Madam Speaker, the rules that governs, Madam Speaker, legislation in introducing a certain measure, Madam Speaker, that one bill must have one particular subject matter, Mrs. Speaker, Your Honor.
But the subject matter is still anti-political dynasty. So pwede naman po siguro na isang special provision, isang separate provision also about prohibiting political dynasties insofar as the party list is concerned.
If that would be that simple, Madam Speaker, then I would agree to the lady from ML Party List. If one section alone can suffice the intricacy of choosing choosing a winner of a party list system, which, by the way, Madam Speaker, guided by the nomination of each party, Madam Speaker, then I would agree. But the Party List Reform Act, Madam Speaker, is more intricate in its discussion. There are several layers of legal and technical, Madam Speaker, consideration that the committee needs to labor on, because we're talking about reforming the party list system and not only targeting a restriction between a candidate directly elected by district and that of a candidate of a party that is nationwide elected by, subject for a nationwide vote election, Madam Speaker.
This
Your Honor.
representation, Madam Speaker, certainly hopes that you will have that party list reform.
I can
bill.
guarantee 100%, Madam Speaker, assure the good lady from the ML Party List that we will tackle right away, Madam Speaker, the Reform Party List Acts. Again, because this is not only the intention of some of our members here, but it is also part of the LEDAC priority of this administration, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Next point, Madam Speaker. Matituring ba natin itong anti-political dynasty bill, or does this bill prohibit political dynasties if it leaves open every indirect and alternative pathway to elective office that dynastic families can exploit? May I invite the attention of this body to Section 13 of the Senate Bill 1901, which contains a provision that is conspicuously absent from the House bill that we're taking up now. SB 1901 expressly prohibits political dynasties under any other mode of holding an elective office. Ano ho ba yung mga other modes na yon? It includes nomination or substitution under the party list system. It also includes designation as a legislative caretaker kung biglang nagkaroon ng bakante ang isang posisyon, ang isang distrito. Also, substitution in case of death, disqualification or withdrawal, although hindi na ho natin we are pushing for that the substitution will happen only in cases of death. But that's not yet, is that a law already? That's not yet a law. Under Section 77 of the Omnibus Election Code, yung substitution ay tungkol pa rin sa death, disqualification, and withdrawal or any other applicable law. Ito pong bill natin has no equivalent provision. It regulates only the direct filing of certificates of candidacy. It says nothing about substitution, nothing about caretaker designation, nothing about the backdoor routes through which a dynastic family member can assume office without ever running in a covered election. Does a good sponsor agree that a provision like Section 13 of Senate Bill 1901 is necessary to ensure that political dynasties will not exploit all these other or alternative pathways to elective office? following the basic legal maxim, Madam Speaker, what cannot be done directly should not be allowed to be accomplished indirectly. Otherwise, the spirit of a law banning political dynasties will be subverted the moment it is enacted, because the families it targets will simply use the routes the bill or the law forgot to close. Are you open? Is the good sponsor open to this?
Madam Speaker, there are several points that were raised in a form of a question, Madam Speaker. So let me just one by one tackle that. Number one is we don't have the exact version of the Senate insofar as the political anti-dynasty bill that we don't. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, I have to apologize to the lady from ML Party. We don't have in hand an exact version. And number two, Madam Speaker, as to the question of the substitution and many other possible scenarios that might happen during a campaign or an election period, Madam Speaker, there we have a separate bill on the substitution, Madam Speaker. This is House Bill 7487, Madam Speaker, which actually tackles those points that were raised by the good lady from ML Party List. And yes, again, once we know the process, Madam Speaker, after we have approved our own version, and the Senate also approves their own version, we know for a fact, Madam Speaker, that the final stage by which the anti-political dynasty will be discussed is the bicameral conference. And I would agree with the good lady from ML Party List. If there are strong features that may improve the current draft of our House bill, then this humble representation would be more willing to sit down with our counterpart in the Senate and adopt other possible introduction of from their version, Madam Speaker, to be accommodated in our own version, Madam Speaker. So again, yes, I agree for the improvement of this draft bill, there will be some sort of an adjustment in the period of adjustment if the good lady from ML Party List also wishes to propose some amendments further, then this humble representation would be more than willing to consider it.
This representation notes with appreciation that statement from the good sponsor. Actually ho, marami-rami pa yung punto ko.
Kayo lang po ata yung magtatanong, ma'am. So
I can just choose maybe two more points.
Thank you very much po.
Para hindi naman po tayo masyadong mag-consume ng oras natin. One other point. Pwede ba natin maituturing, is this an effective and a strong anti-political dynasty bill if it has no provision whatsoever on the consequences of violating the prohibition, either administratively, electorally, or criminally? Madam Speaker, or Mr. Speaker, House Bill 8389 is conspicuous for the complete absence of any provision on the effect of violating the prohibition on political dynasty relationships. Compare this to three other measures. Yung sa Senate Bill din po, Senate Bill 1901, Section 7, ang nakasabi, COMELEC is empowered to deny due course or cancel a certificate of candidacy motu proprio or upon verified petition by any registered voter without prejudice to criminal liability under its penal provision in Section 14, which treats violations as election offenses under the Omnibus Election Code. Ang isa pa pong batas, ito mismong Marcos and D. Bill 6771, which is supposed to be the working draft of this bill. Now, meron pong Section 7 ito. It provides that in cases of violation, COMELEC shall motu proprio or, upon verified petition, deny due course to the certificate of candidacy, and the votes cast shall not be counted. The candidate shall not be proclaimed nor be qualified to assume office. Yung bill din po ng representation na ito, House Bill 2131, the COMELEC motu proprio may suspend giving due course to the certificate of candidacy if a violation is apparent from the documents filed. Upon investigation and a finding of substantial evidence, the certificate shall be denied due course. Any person may file any such verified petition. Ito pong bill natin ngayon, 8389, has none of this. Doesn't the complete absence of any provision on the effects, both administratively and criminally, of violating the prohibition on political dynasty relationships make this bill weak?
No.
Especially in terms of accomplishing its supposed goal of deterring and punishing the very conduct it seeks to remedy?
No, Madam Speaker. But I would agree that this is not a perfect bill, Madam Speaker. It does not render weakness to the bill. In fact, Madam Speaker, I agree, Madam Speaker, that there will be other amendments that could possibly be introduced during the period of amendment. The reason why, Madam Speaker, that this bill, Madam Speaker, has certain absences of certain features that the good lady from ML Party List would wish to have to be present or to be reflected in the current bill is that those that were mentioned already under Omnibus Election Code can still be effectively implemented and be exercised by COMELEC should there be any violations that could be apparent during an election. For example, if we have the second degree prohibition, then automatically we give way for the COMELEC to adopt their own IRR and implementing right away, Madam Speaker, in spelling out how they can administratively implement certain sections in the proposed bill, to be effectively implemented, Madam Speaker, by
Is
the
a good
Commission.
sponsor telling
So,
us that
if
we
I
would
may
leave
allow,
it, we would leave it to the COMELEC?
No. What I'm trying to explain, Madam Speaker, is that number one, Madam Speaker, we also give elbow room for COMELEC to adopt their own IRR. Secondly, Madam Speaker, there's a reason why separability clause, Madam Speaker, is introduced in the form of the bill, Madam Speaker, so that those existing laws that are still being implemented and in consonance with the sections and provisions or in the proposed law can still be effective, Madam Speaker. When it comes to disqualification, COMELEC can also disqualify for certain violations, Madam Speaker, so long, Madam Speaker, as we're talking about, for example, second degree of consanguinity, if this provision and section is prohibited in an election, that can automatically implement, Madam Speaker, certain penalties. But again, just to give you, Madam Speaker, the good lady from ML Party List, a shorter answer, again, it's unfortunate that the good lady from ML Party List withdrew her proposed measure, but we can actually accept and consider if there will be an amendment or reintroduction of certain penalties that the good lady wishes to introduce in the period of amendment, then again, this representation is more than willing or more will consider these proposals of the good lady from ML Party List, Your Honor.
This representation, Mr. Speaker, shall endeavor to do that. I must point out, however, that there has to be a provision on that, because an IRR can only be based on the law. If the law does not have any such provision, then it cannot be a proper subject of an IRR.
Mr. Speaker, we're talking about citing the example of by violation. In the proposed bill that we are currently discussing, Mr. Speaker, the prohibition that may be committed by a certain individual is within the second degree of consanguinity and affinity, Madam Speaker. I'm just citing to you an example in a certain section, Madam Speaker, as proposed under the current draft of the bill, Madam Speaker. So if there's a candidate that actually within that restriction of consanguinity affinity, familial restriction, then automatically the COMELEC can actually implement that by virtue of that adopting their own IRR. That is the frame of mind that I would like to impart to the good lady of ML Party List. But then again, if there are other issues, violations, succession, again, I would like to reiterate that number one, this representation would also consider if there are reintroduction of reintroduction of possible amendments that the good lady would wish to introduce in the period of amendment, then this representation would be willing to consider them, since we're talking about improving the current draft of this measure, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor.
Thank you, distinguished sponsor. I must highlight the fact that a bill without enforcement is not a law. It is simply a declaration. I just wish to point that out.
Mr. Speaker, if I may I respond to that very, very quickly, Madam Speaker. Again, the good lady from the ML Party List has also cited the Omnibus Election Code. And there are certain provisions in that particular code, Madam Speaker, that speaks about penalties for certain violations, Madam Speaker. And these violations would still be implementable even if we adopt this version of the House. Secondly, Madam Speaker, the other, Madam Speaker, violations that I would like to introduce or would like to explain to the good lady from the ML Party List is giving the exact example of the second degree of consanguinity. I'm just basing that, Madam Speaker, as an example that every by violation of that provision, of that restriction within a certain familial connection, Madam Speaker, or blood relation, then automatically we allow the COMELEC to adopt their own IRR. But then again, I would agree that in order to improve this current version, draft version of this bill, then there should be any penalties that the good lady would wish to introduce, again, I would state into record that this representation is more than willing to consider those reintroduction of possible amendments from the ML, good lady from ML party list.
Mr. Speaker, I am dispensing with the other points for my interpellation, but may I just be allowed to give a closing, some sort of a closing manifestation or statement,
For the
especially
lady-
with respect to the key points that I raised in the course of the interpellation. It was rather interesting to be debating with this distinguished
Exchanging
sponsor.
ideas, exchanging
Exchange of ideas, yes, that's more like it. Bilang pagtatapos po as a closing manifestation, does this bill prohibit political dynasties, or does it do something far more damaging? Create the permanent legal fiction that we already have. Mr. Speaker, in 1987, the framers wrote Section 26, Article 2 with one purpose: to ensure that the accident of birth would never again be sufficient qualification for public office. 39 taon na ang lumipas. And today, we finally have a bill. But consider what this bill actually does, with due respect to the good sponsor. It permits succession, it permits cross-level dynasties, it permits multi-province family control, it permits the party list system to be colonized by political families. It has no penalties or sanctions. 3 consultations, 23 position papers, a retired Supreme Court justice and a former member of the Constitutional Commission disregarded, unheeded, objections from different organizations and networks generally also ignored. The most entrenched dynasties in this country operate exactly the way this bill permits. A patriarch as governor, a son as congressman, a wife as mayor, a cousin in the party list. All of it legal under this bill, all of it untouched. I close with the question that I believe history will ask of every member who would eventually vote on this bill. Are we passing a law that prohibits political dynasties? Or are we passing a law that by appearing to prohibit them, makes them permanent, makes them legitimate, and forecloses or makes it now difficult for any future Congress from trying again? Because if it is the latter, then this is not reform. This is its opposite. And we will own that for the rest of our political lives. Salamat po, Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor. Thank you.
Marami pong salamat sa ating gagalang-galang na representante ng ML party list. Although
Thank
many
you.
of our statements do not resonate quite fairly, Madam Speaker, the position of the bill, but we do understand and respect her position on the subject matter, Madam Speaker, Your Honor.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend consideration of House Bill number 8389.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, with leave of the House, I move to open the privilege hour.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The privilege hour is now open.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the distinguished gentleman from Party List Tingog, Representative Jude A. Asidre, to avail of the privilege hour.
The Honorable Asidre is recognized. Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, barely a week ago, I stood here in this chamber to deliver a privileged speech on the question that I believe goes to the heart of our democracy. Can we disagree better? I spoke then about the growing negativity, hatred, and lies that now shape too much of our public conversation, especially on social media. I said that disagreement in a democracy is normal. Criticism is normal. Opposition is normal. Accountability is normal. Today, I rise once again on this issue because recent events have made that question even more urgent. The reported arrest of Franco Mabanta, founder of Peanut Gallery Media Network, together with 4 others during an entrapment operation by the National Bureau of Investigation, should make all of us pause. According to reports, the arrest stemmed from an alleged demand of 300 million from Leyte 1st District Representative and former House Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez in exchange for withholding online content supposedly linking him to corruption and flood control anomalies. Reports also state that the NBI recovered entrapment money and mobile phones allegedly used in coordinating the transaction. Let me be very clear. The case against Franco Mabanta must be decided by facts, evidence, due process, and the rule of law. The accused have rights. The investigation must be fair. The courts must decide. We should not replace legal proceedings with trial by social media. But we must also say plainly what is at stake. When a group allegedly prepares damaging material, holds it back, and demands money in exchange for not releasing it, that is not journalism. That is not commentary. That is not democratic criticism. That is alleged extortion. Sinasang-ayunan ko po ang sinabi ni Congressman Martin Romualdez sa kanyang statement. Sa isang demokrasya, malayang pumuna, pero malinaw po sa ating batas, isang krimen ang pangingikil. That distinction is very consequential to our democracy. A journalist investigates to inform the public. An extortionist threatens to profit from fear. A commentator criticizes to persuade. An extortionist pressures to collect. A citizen demands accountability for the common good. An extortionist uses accusation as leverage. A free press exposes the truth. An extortionist weaponizes the possibility or one political controversy. It affects the credibility of journalism. It affects the integrity of public discourse. It affects the trust that our people place in genuine media institutions, responsible commentators, and honest content creators. Journalists already carry a heavy burden. They verify, they investigate, they check sources, they give subjects the chance to respond. They publish because the public has a right to know. They take risks because the truth matters. But when a social media personality or an online network allegedly use content as a bargaining chip, they damage the work of legitimate media. They make citizens ask whether exposés are done for truth or for payment. They make honest journalism suffer because of those who use the language of media without the discipline of journalism. This is why we must return to the central question. Can we disagree better? Can we criticize without lying? Can we investigate without extorting? Can we expose wrongdoing without manufacturing stories? Can we demand accountability without using threats? Can we use social media as a tool for truth instead as a weapon for intimidation? Mr. Speaker, we must now move from rhetoric to action. For this reason, I will be, together with 40 members of the House, filing a resolution calling for an investigation influencers and online political operators. The resolution will also seek to address a larger and long overdue questions: whether standards of conduct expected of legitimate media institutions and professional journalists should also apply in appropriate ways to political commentary made on social media. This is not about requiring every citizen to be a journalist. This is about limiting this is not about limiting ordinary political opinion. This is about asking whether those who shape regularly shape public opinion, present themselves as sources of information, publish political accusation, and influence public discourse should be guided by basic standards of truth, fairness, verification, accountability, and respect for human dignity. Because when social media commentators, then the question becomes unavoidable. Should they not only also carry some measure of the responsibility that comes with that influence? Fairness must remain the minimum standard of any public discourse that claims to inform the people. The purpose is not to undermine free speech. The purpose is to protect it. The purpose is not to silence criticism. The purpose is to separate criticism from criminal coercion. The purpose is, it is time, Mr. Speaker, to determine the boundaries between journalism and social media commentary, between public interest reporting and political blackmail, between legitimate criticism and criminal extortion. We need a policy framework that affirms freedom while demanding responsibility. First, truth must remain the minimum standard of public debate. Criticize hard, but do not lie. Disagree strongly, but do not fabricate. Expose wrongdoing, but do not invent it. Demand accountability, but do not treat rumors as evidence. Second, online platforms, digital media networks, and content creators must observe clearer standards of transparency and responsibility. When content is used for coordinated harassment, manipulation, impersonation, or alleged extortion, there must be effective reporting systems, preservation of digital evidence, and cooperation with lawful investigation. Third, public officials, journalists, influencers, campaign teams, and citizens must accept one shared standard. Speech is free, but coercion is not. Criticism is protected, but threats are not. Accountability is democratic, but extortion is criminal. Ginoong Speaker, hindi po ito panawagan para patahimikin ang mga tinig. Ito ay panawagan para itaas ang antas ng ating pampublikong talakayan. Dapat manatiling malaya ang media. Dapat manatiling matapang ang mga komentarista. Dapat manatiling mapagbantay ang mamamayan. Dapat patuloy na magtanong ng mahihirap na tanong ang mga kritiko. Dapat patuloy na masuri ang mga lingkod bayan. Dapat patuloy na managot ang pamahalaan. But let us also draw the line where democracy itself draws the line. Ang malayang pamamahayag ay hindi dapat kailanman maging panangga sa pangingikil. Journalism must never become a cover for intimidation. Social media must never become a marketplace where reputations are held hostage for money. Disagreement is normal in a democracy. Strong criticism is part of public life. Public officials must be ready to answer hard questions. But no democracy can remain healthy where lies are monetized, where hatred is rewarded, and when accusations, especially baseless accusations, become a business model. Social media can be a platform for anything you want it to be. It can be a platform for truth or a platform for threats. It can be a platform for accountability or a platform for abuse. It can be a platform for journalism or a platform for extortion. The choice before us is clear. Let us choose truth over manipulation. Let us choose accountability over intimidation. Let us choose journalism over blackmail. Let us choose democracy over digital lawlessness. And above all, let us choose to disagree better. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to refer the speech of the Honorable Jude Asidre to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize the gentleman from the party list TUCP, the Honorable Raymond Democrito C. Mendoza, to avail of the privilege hour.
Deputy Speaker Raymond Mendoza is recognized. Please proceed.
Daghang salamat. Mayad na hapon, Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues. May 1 was Labor Day. Happy Labor Day. But Mr. Speaker, hindi happy ang manggagawa. The workers are not happy. I rise today on a matter of personal and collective privilege because every Filipino worker, their family, do demand and deserve accountability, especially from this government. This April, the inflation has surged. Tumaas 7.2, fastest in 3 years, blowing past both the BSP, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas projection of 6.4 and far from the target of 2 to 4% by our economic managers. Magaling daw sila. Mr. Speaker, this is the highest inflation in 38 months, 3 years, eroding the purchasing power of our peso to just 73 centavos, the lowest in 8 long years. Remember, in 2023, inflation was also at 8.7. Worse, it turned out that in the wage hike, it's corruption, flood control scandal. It turned out that corruption and inaction, not wage legislation, as wrongly warned against by these economic managers, because paulit-ulit ang hearing natin na sabi nila, kung wage increase, inflationary daw. Mababa pa sweldo sa manggagawa, pobre na kaayo, pati naman yung inflation kasalanan ng manggagawa. It's the mismanagement of these economic managers drag the Philippine gross domestic product, GDP, growth down to 2.8%, Mr. Speaker, in the first quarter. Its lowest post-pandemic level in 5 years. And among the weakest economic performances recorded in more than a decade outside the pandemic itself. Okta research now reports that 1 in every 3 believe that wage increase is the most urgent national concern that this administration should address. WR numero goes even further. Nearly half echoed that wage hike. Ulitin ko, wage hike should be prioritized. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, the Filipino people expect that their government, this government, can and must do more. And indeed, there are many ways to act, through wage increases, through tax relief, through temporary price controls, and through reforms in key industries like oil and power that drive costs after decades of deregulation and privatization. Instead, our highest paid economic managers are steering this country towards a collision course with us, social upheaval, while continuing to pander to corporate greed. At a time when workers are told to sacrifice and endure stagnant starvation wages, the country's billionaires grew even richer this April, with their combined wealth reaching to 37.3 billion. Not pesos, dollars. 37.3 billion. Mataas. while ordinary Filipinos are steadily being pushed into becoming the new poor, especially kung ma-hospital ka. Wala na. Mr. Speaker, if they always say if the workers are truly are and will always be the backbone of this republic, then we appeal to and trust our president will issue marching orders to mobilize this entire administration to ramp up efforts to restore real wages and protect the purchasing power of Filipino working families. Or else, tens and thousands of workers and ordinary Filipinos will continue to march not only to Mindiola, as we did in last Labor Day, but to the Senate and supposedly the House of the Representatives of the House of the People at every hearing, even across our central business districts, to make our voices impossible to ignore any longer. All that the workers of this country, yung manggagawa, sir, is asking of this country, meaningful engagement with the president, coupled with equally meaningful social labor legislation. Mr. Speaker, in the previous administrations, the Arroyo administration enacted RA Republic Act 9504, granting income tax exemption for minimum wage earners. The Aquino administration enacted the Batas Kasambahay, Tripartite Law, Republic Act 10653, increasing the tax-exempt ceiling of our 13th-month pay and other benefits. The Duterte administration enacted the OSH, the Occupational Safety and Health Law. They expanded maternity leave law from 60 days to 120 days. And of course, in which I chair the Department of Migrant Workers, DMW law, among others. Dumami. Today. Now, ang maganda lang nangyari, sa TUCP, naging deputy speaker ako. For the past 4 years, medyo wala. Nothing to, well, there is this, Trabaho para sa Bayan Act, na master plan daw sa employment enacted in 2023. Yet, as of March, more than 2 million Filipinos remain unemployed, while underemployment stubbornly persists at the double-digit levels. And this does not even account for the absurdity of both our national and international definitions of employed, where working for just a single hour is already enough to be counted as having a job or employed. Millions of overseas Filipino workers, OFWs, continue to face growing uncertainty even as another wave of over 500,000 fresh graduates enter to the increasingly tight labor market, still unable to generate enough stable, decent, and well-paying jobs. Thus, we must ask, what will and should define this administration? 2 years na lang ang natira. 2028 is approaching. Sayang. Because accountability, Mr. Speaker, is not only about fighting corruption at the highest levels of government. Accountability is also about confronting and answering for inaction. As the House of the People, we always say a House of the People, manggagawa. Let us not betray the trust bestowed upon us by our people to legislate higher wages. We did it last time in 19th Congress. Pumasa. We can have a Section 43 to fast-track it, kung kaya. Let us have hearings 1 year, almost 1 year. 1 year has passed. Wala pang hearing. We appeal. TUCP appeals. higher wages, quality jobs, and better lives. Let us finally fulfill, not neglect, our constitutional duty to ensure that every worker in this country not only possesses these rights on paper, but genuinely enjoy security of tenure, humane conditions of work, and a living wage. A living wage. Together, let us restore not only the value of wages, but the dignity of labor and the confidence of our people in this government, in their government. As they say, paulit-ulit, Mr. Speaker, public office, after all, is public trust. First and foremost, in service of the workers who keep this nation moving forward. Finally, to end, Mr. Speaker, hopefully next year I'll be reading a different speech and more positive than this one. That is my hope. Daghang salamat, maraming salamat, mabuhi ang manggagawa, mabuhay ang manggagawang Pilipino.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Mendoza. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we would like to refer the speech of the Honorable Deputy Speaker Mendoza to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. The speech of Deputy Speaker Mendoza is referred to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we would like to acknowledge the guests of the Honorable Giselle Mary Maceda, the 4th District of Manila, officials of the Philippine Dermatological Society, namely Dr. Maria Jasmine Amora, the President of the Philippine Dermatological Society, Dr. Arsenio Luz Adao Gray, Dr. Cynthia Tan, Dr. Lisa May Paz Tan, and Dr. Arnold Yu.
To the distinguished guests of the Honorable Giselle Mary Maceda, MD, our colleagues in the medical profession, Dr. Maria Jasmine Hamora, President of Philippine Dermatological Society, Dr. Arsenio Luz Adao Gray, Board of Trustees, BDS, Dr. Cynthia Zeriacotan, Immediate Past President, PDS, Dr. Lisa Marie Paz Tan, First Vice President, and Dr. Arnold Yu, Chairman, Legislative Committee. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we would like to recognize the representative of Bayan Party List, the Honorable Dada Ismula, to avail of privilege hour.
The Honorable Ismula is recognized. Please proceed.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues, how would the House of Representatives react if Chinese government erects its flag along Commonwealth Avenue and claims it as theirs? Ang batasan to Commonwealth Avenue is about the same distance between Pag-asa Island and Sandy Cay. Sandy Cay is an integral part of our territory. That's why it's also called Pag-asa Cay. And yet we've seen in the news in the past week, China landed in Sandy Cay, unfurled their flag, and spread disinformation about our civilian mission. Kitang-kita ko po mismo ang kanilang presensya sa ating sariling karagatan. Isang malinaw na pananakot at panghihimasok ng China sa ating bakuran. I had the privilege of joining the civilian mission of the Atin Ito Coalition to the West Philippine Sea as the first congressperson to do so. Sumama po ako sa misyong ito para makita ang tunay na kalagayan ng ating mga kapwa Pilipino sa munisipyo ng Kalayaan sa West Philippine Sea. Kasama ko sa MV Kapitan Felix Oca ang mga magigiting na mga ordinaryong Pilipino, artist, mga taong simbahan, mga members ng media, volunteers, mga mangingisda at magsasaka. Lahat mga Pilipinong nagmamahal sa bayan. Simula pa noon, ang layunin lang ng atin ito ay makapagbigay ng tulong sa ating mga kababayan na pinagkakaitan at hinaharas ng China. Sa simula pa lang ng ating paglalakbay, hindi na tayo tinantanan ng China. Mula sa ating pag-alis, may mga barko na ng China na nakabuntot sa atin. At 7:20 a.m. on May 1, on Labor Day no less, isang Chinese Coast Guard vessel ang nakita naming sumusunod sa amin. At that time, we were just 60 nautical miles west of Mindoro. That's roughly the distance of a short drive from here to Tanawan, Batangas. Nasa loob tayo ng West Philippine Sea. Ito po ang video. Ano ang ginagawa ng China sa loob ng ating karagatan? Kahit ang pag-document namin sa mga pangyayari, Mr. Speaker, pilit na hinaharang ng China. We discovered later na na-block nila ang ating mga drone-mounted cameras na ginagamit namin to take videos and pictures of our peaceful mission. If China has their own laws restricting access to drones, they should only do that in their own territory. Paano sila naka-access sa airspace within the West Philippine Sea? If a Filipino wants to fly a drone, kailan pa that we have to seek approval from the Chinese government? China should never be allowed to impose its laws on Filipinos, especially on Filipino territory. Hindi lang yun, Mr. Speaker. On the morning of May 3, I went to Sandy Cay with volunteers of the Atin Ito Coalition. Proud kaming ibandera ang watawat natin. Sandy Cay is an integral part of Kalayaan Island Group. Anong ginagawa ng China, Mr. Speaker? Nung nakaalis na kami, ginaya nila kami. They brazenly landed on Sandy Cay and showed their flag, clearly mocking our sovereignty. Pagkatapos ng matagumpay na misyon sa Sandy Cay, nagpakalat sila ng basura at fake news. Sinasabi nilang tayo ang nininira sa kalikasan, samantalang ang totoo, tayo ang nagbabantay at sila ang sumisira sa ating yamang dagat. For years, they destroy our coral reefs, they destroy our marine ecosystems, at ngayon, sila pa ang may lakas ng loob mag-akusa. Mr. Speaker, I also want to draw attention to the state of Pag-asa Island. Pag-asa Island is home to 400 Filipino. Ang ating mga pamilya at frontliners doon, matitibay ang loob. Pero kailangan na kailangan ng ating suporta. Hanggang high school lang ang kayang tapusin sa isla. Pagdating ng kolehiyo, kailangan nilang mangibang bayan at lumuwas ng Puerto Princesa. Ang masakit pa, pati ang simpleng pagbili ng bigas o gamot, kailangang magbiyahe ng ilang araw by boat. If you remember, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, sometime in February, 16 local government officials from the Kalayaan Municipality were declared banned in China by the Chinese government. Their offense? Nanindigan sila para sa West Philippine Sea. This was clearly an attempt by China to scare and intimidate our LGU officials. Pero ang ating mga LGU officials, hindi nagpapatinag. Now with what little they have, patuloy silang nagbibigay ng suporta at hanap buhay sa mga pamilyang nakatira doon. Mr. Speaker, surely we can do our part in the House of Representatives to ensure our fellow Filipinos in the West Philippine Sea are not abandoned. My experience with China's threat and scare tactics was brief, pero ito ang realidad ng mga mangingisda at mga frontliners natin sa West Philippine Sea. Ito po ang ilan sa mga mahahalagang hakbang para ipakita natin ang suporta sa mga taga-Pag-asa. Una, magtayo tayo ng sapat na infrastruktura mga oportunidad para sa trabaho, training at edukasyon. Isulong din natin ang turismo sa Isla ng Kalayaan Municipality. Kung ang Boracay at Palawan ay dinadayo natin ngayon, dapat ay naging normal na destinasyon din ang Pag-asa para sa ating mga Pilipino. Pangalawa, hikayatin natin ang mas maraming Pilipino na makilahok sa usapin ng West Philippine Sea. Ituro natin ang kahalagahan nito sa ating mga anak. Sa susunod na civilian mission, mas mainam kung makitang mas marami na tayong mga mambabatas na kasamang maglayag patungong West Philippine Sea. Pangatlo, nananawagan tayo sa ating Pangulo. Itigil na ang anumang balak o negosasyon para sa joint exploration deals kasama ang China sa West Philippine Sea hanggang walang accountability. Sa ating mga kapatid sa Pag-asa Island, ang inyong katatagan ang nagbibigay sa amin ng lakas ng loob na tumindig dito. Hindi kayo nag-iisa. Aakbayan kayo ng House of Representatives at ng buong bansa sa paglaban para sa isang kinabukasang malayang mabuhay at makapaghanap buhay ang bawat Pilipino, saan man sila sa ating bansa. Maraming salamat. Shukran. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Honorable Ismuna, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to refer the speech of the Honorable Dada Ismula to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. The speech of the Honorable Ismula is referred to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Is there any objection? Chair hears none. Session is suspended for a few minutes. Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other member who wishes to avail of the privilege hour, I move to close the privilege hour.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Motion is approved. The privilege hour is now closed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended. Next. Ari, this one. Ang ibang water. Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Section 16, Rule 6 of the Rules of Procedure in Impeachment Proceedings, I move to elect the following members of the House of Representatives as prosecutors in trial on the impeachment against Vice President Sara Z. Duterte. Representative Jervil Jinky Beatrix R. Luistro. Representative Terry L. Ridon. Representative Ramon Rodrigo L. Gutierrez. Representative Isabel Maria J. Zamora. Representative Lawrence R. Defensor. Representative Jose Manuel Tadeo Shell Jokno. Representative Leila M. De Lima. Representative Kaka J. Bagao. Representative Jonathan Keith T. Flores. Representative Lorden G. Suan. And last but not the least, Representative Joel R. Chua.
There is a motion to elect the aforementioned members as prosecutors in the trial on the impeachment against Vice President Sara Z. Duterte. Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the session until tomorrow, 3 p.m.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The session is suspended until 3 p.m. tomorrow, May 13, 2026. Thank you.